Welcome to our Forex and CFD Market Focus Report for Monday, September 30, 2013. Let's go ahead and take a look at our calendar for today. We saw New Zealand building permits come in at 1.4%. That was a better print than the prior. We also saw UK home track housing activity remain on the positive side. Japanese PMI came in better than expected. We saw a downturn, however, in Japanese industrial production last month. And then we saw better than expected retail trade data in Japan. Saw the Chinese leading index tick lower, and we saw some provisional Australian inflation data come in right around expected. Australian private sector credit growth came in fairly robust, and the Chinese HSBC manufacturing PMI number ticked higher to 50.2, but came in below expectations. We saw continued growth in New Zealand's money supply. We saw growth, but a deceleration in Japanese housing starts, and we saw a nice pickup in Japanese construction orders. Moving over to the European session, we saw German retail sales come in on the positive side. We saw UK net consumer credit continue to expand, and we saw net lending secured on dwellings in the UK improve. Additionally, we saw Eurozone CPI tick lower. At the headline level, CPI came in at 1.1%, and at the core rate, CPI ticked lower to 1%. This suggests that the ECB does not have to tighten interest rates anytime soon. Later in the North American session today, we're going to take a look at some Canadian GDP numbers and also some industrial production data there. We're also going to look at the Chicago PMI and the Dallas Fed Manufacturing Activity Index. Let's go ahead and take a look at some FX activity. We saw the Japanese yen outperform all other currencies today, and we can see right here that the euro is underperforming all other currencies today. Looking at some other asset classes, we see gold opened higher, gapped higher here at the weekly open by about $5 against the US dollar. It's currently trading right around $13.37. Gold gapped higher on account of the likely closure of the US government tomorrow, which is the first day of the new fiscal US year. Silver, we also see trading gapping higher and then came off, now trading around 21.743. So the metals complex was very reactionary to the news that the US government is likely to close tomorrow for the first time in about 16 years. Taking a look at another asset class, we can see Brent crude futures here gapped significantly lower at the weekly open and are now trading right around 107.23. If the US government closes, there will likely be less demand for oil products in the US, and this is keeping a lid on prices. Roughly the same story here in West Texas Intermediate. This, of course, is more reactionary to the US government's likely closure tomorrow, and that's why we see a significant move lower. Also, US President Obama spoke with Iranian President Rouhani on Friday. This was the first known dialogue between leaders from two countries over the telephone since the Iranian Revolution in 1979. The prospect of an eventual thaw between the US and Iran regarding their political relations is keeping West Texas Intermediate on the defensive. Let's go ahead and take a look at some FX activity. Here we can see the US dollar daily activity index is not really trending too much. It's a little bit below water today. Later in the week in the U.S., we will have remarks from Fed Chairman Bernanke, and we will be attuned to any remarks this week from Fed officials and policymakers concerning the possibility of a QE taper before the end of the year. The euro, as we said, is the worst performer today. There's a nice downward trend here in the euro. The move lower was precipitated by the collapse of the Italian government overnight after Berlusconi withdrew his political support from the Letta coalition, and also the weaker than expected CPI print in the eurozone is keeping the euro on the defensive. The Japanese yen, as we said, is the best performer today. Here we can see a nice upward trend in the Japanese yen. Overnight tonight in Japan, tomorrow we're going to see the Bank of Japan's third quarter Tankan survey of manufacturers. Also on October 1st tomorrow, we expect Prime Minister Abe will announce an increase in the national sales tax to 8%. That should take effect from April 2014. We also expect Abe will announce a supplementary budget of around 5 trillion yen for the current fiscal year. In the UK, we saw that better than expected home track data, but it did not do much to support the sterling. Here we can see sterling is moving lower on our daily activity index for the British pound. The Swiss franc is right around the blue zero line here. Nothing much is happening there today with regard to a trend. In Australia, of course, we don't see much of a trend either. We can see the Australian dollar daily activity index has recovered to around the blue horizontal neutral line. The Reserve Bank of Australia will announce its interest rate decision tomorrow. The RBA is expected to keep rates unchanged around 2.50%. Our Canadian dollar activity index is down slightly. See a little bit of a downward intraday bias here in the C dollar. Of course, we await the Canadian industrial production data later today. Finally, the New Zealand dollar is right around the neutral horizontal blue line here. It has recovered since the Australasian session. Here we have the daily chart of the euro against the dollar. We can see the euro gapped lower on account of that Berlusconi coalition withdrawing its support from the Letta government in Italy. We've drawn some Fibonacci lines here from Wednesday's low up to Friday's high, and we can see that today's intraday high is right around the 135.11 area. That comes in exactly at the 50% of this Fibonacci range. Any move higher in the euro, we would expect a test of this blue horizontal line here at 135.23, followed by a possible test of the 135.38 area. We can see here, as we adjust our screen, that the euro for several trading sessions has been supported right around this red 134.57 area here. We will see if this level continues to provide support. This is a daily chart of the Australian dollar against the New Zealand dollar, so this is Aussie Kiwi. We can see the Aussie lacked strength to test this blue moving average line here and stopped just short of testing this red resistance line here. Came in right around 112.84. A move higher, we would expect a test of the 113.05 and the 1.1327 level area here. It's also interesting to note that the cross rate here was supported right around this yellow uptrend line coming in right here. Moving over to the British pound Canadian dollar cross rate, we can see sterling is at multi-month highs here against the British pound, against the Canadian dollar. We can see today's intraday low is right around the 1.6617 area. That represents short-term Fibonacci support. A move lower, we would expect a test of the 165.74 area and possibly a test of the 165.65 area. The 165.39 area is also another key support line down here, and that coincides with this blue moving average. Finally, we have the Swiss franc Japanese yen cross rate. This is a daily chart, and we can see that we had intraday resistance right around this 38.2% retracement area. That represented the intraday high from recent last week down to today's intraday low. That level came in right around 108.37. Any additional weakness in the Swiss yen cross rate we would expect would test this yellow 107.32 and then 106.69 downward area. Thank you very much for watching our Forex and CFD market focus report for today.